Hey, you're listening to Don't Lie to Your Life Coach podcast with Kim Arrington. I'm Kim Arrington. I'm a life coach, a weight loss coach, an author, and a badass passionate about helping you connect back to your most authentic self. Join me here each week so I can coach you on how to think all those juicy thoughts that get you feeling your absolute best and taking some big ass action. Coaching has changed my life, and it can change your life too. I'm here to give you real life solutions to create a life you'll love. Because the truth is, boo, you ain't just got problems, you got options. Hey, y'all. How y'all been? I bet you did not have to dry off with a pair of sweatpants, did you? Do you know how hard it is drying a fro with a pair of sweatpants? Y'all, we have our good towels that we wash and bleach. I'm on towel duty. I am the towel queen of our home. And those were gone. Then we have the secondary towels that are the old towels you don't get rid of, but they're the backup towels. Went through those. Then we had the beach towels. Did I dry off with a beach towel of Panama? Yes, I did. And the striped towels. We went through those. We always have a million washcloths, okay? I'm not going to start this washcloth, the wash rag, who uses it, who doesn't. Okay, I believe in a washcloth, okay? So I believe in changing a washcloth every day too, that part. All right, so we have those. But then it went to you on your own, sis. So I dry off with a pair of sweatpants. And last night I dried off with a t-shirt. Now listen, I have this thing. I don't know if you guys have, I have this weird thing. You have your weird things. My weird thing is I cannot run the wash machine, and I absolutely cannot run the dryer when I'm not home. And so I feel like I have been a little bit more in the streets, but I've just been so busy. And what have I been busy with? I've been busy with this course that I call it a solution that I'm creating for you, for women, successful women over 40, okay? And it is all about the program that helped me to lose 65 pounds, that has helped me to keep weight off, that helped me to get myself back, that helped me to learn how to predominantly stop overeating. And I'm so excited. So this is another thing. I never record a podcast the week of it being due. So this is going to actually come out, not this week. Y'all what do you mean? Well, today is July 10th. It's my sister's birthday. It'll come out, this episode will come out next week. And I'm going to record the one after this, which is really the year episode. So my plan was to record the year episode as the 52nd episode. I don't even know why I'm telling y'all this. And let me turn off my phone because my friends love to call me during a podcast. But my husband and I had a beautiful day. And came back and our AC was off in our house. And we had just had a huge AC repair. If you listen to the podcast, you know that. And it was an easy fix, flushing the line. It's just ironic because my mother we used the same company, and she had an AC appointment scheduled for the Monday, and our AC went off on Sunday and came back on Monday. We had someone come in on Monday. We took her appointment. So that was just by the grace, right? Mwah. And I'm so glad I said something to my mom. That's not even irony. That's grace. Okay. And so they got us up and running. It didn't cost anything because it was just our regular twice a year maintenance. Yay. Because we had already spent thousands of dollars on a AC repair. So it just all worked out. But I was going to record the podcast on that Monday, and instead it was before the 4th of July. I was pulling pork barbecue, Eastern North Carolina style, at 85 degrees. And actually, I had about 3 fans on me and I was quite comfortable. I just was very windblown after that and had to put a big pot of water on to like get, like, I was so dry. I've been literally dried out. I was like, it's really dry, So anyway, all the things y'all didn't want to know. The reason why I'm telling you this is that I don't usually record a podcast this close, but I need to get a couple more in the bank. I've just been so busy with the course. So if you want to know about the course, go to www.kimarrington.com/weight loss, and you will be the first to hear about it. It is almost there, y'all. So what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about, and I just want to make sure for my friends on YouTube, okay, that I have, that you're able to see me, because I ain't getting into another long story about that. Okay, the camera is where it needs to be. How many of you all used to love watching Superman growing up? I loved Superman. My husband and I just recently watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. I mean, I feel like the 80s had so many good movies. I was just picking on him about Back to the Future, because he grew up very, in rural Eastern North Carolina. And I was kind of like, did y'all even have a video store? And they did in Williamston. Side note, my family on my mother's side, my paternal grandfather, we're all from Eastern North Carolina too. So whenever I'm picking on him, I'm kind of picking on my people as well. But no, and by the way, y'all, no disrespect. I love Eastern North Carolina. I love the people. I just love picking on my husband, saying he's more country than me, because people from DC or New York say I'm country, right? And I am. I like being country. But back to Superman. Superman had this one flaw, and it was in the form of the rock called Kryptonite. Now, of course, that I be on that Kryptonite just came in my mind. No, not that Kryptonite. The actual rock that, Superman could not be around, or he lost his powers. That Kryptonite, right? And what I want to talk to you about today is what is your kryptonite? My best friend and I have this conversation all the time, around what is your 1 or 1 to 3 things that pull you out of who you are. And those are the things to look at, maybe not in the moment that it happens, but to begin to work through. I call them your spicy 3 issues, those 3 things that get you. But with this episode on what's your kryptonite, I want to go deeper into not, I can't save money, or, I can't keep the house clean. Those are symptoms to me. Kryptonite, that's a deeper wound. That's a deeper wound. So I'm really interested in helping y'all. See, I'm country, y'all. I'm interested in helping y'all. I had to say it 3 times. Learn how to cope with the deeper things that create the symptoms. So if you think about it like this, the kryptonite is your deeper core wound, and the symptom may be, so for one of the kryptonites that I want to mention today is about being chosen, feeling like people want to be around you, that they love you, that you are heard, seen, understood. That is a core need that we have, that our primary caregivers, now some of us were raised by 1 parent, 2 parents, some of our grandparents were our parents, or our aunts or uncles, our cousins, or we're adopted, or whatever, however you make family, that those people helped to create your sense of self around being chosen. Now, a symptom of not being chosen may be that you try too hard with friends, okay? Or it could be that you don't have any boundaries, and you allow people to, show up any way they want, and you don't feel like you can assert and say, hey, here's my expectation. Remember what I always say about boundaries with your damn self. I will link that episode. Is your boundaries are the rules you have for your behavior, your expectations. And we live in this environment where they're like, oh, expectations, you shouldn't have any. Well, your expectations are how you feel other people should treat you. But your boundaries get to be what you do when the people don't treat you the way you want to be treated. Those are all around you, right? Like someone's disrespectful constantly with me. I have a conversation. It improves some, but it goes back. I have another conversation, and in that conversation, I say, hey, if we're not able to get on the same page about this, I'm going to be spending less time with you. Okay. So my expectation is their behavior to change, but my boundary is the behavior I do, like deuces. Like if you talk to me crazy all the time, we got to put some space between us. And then I have to enforce that with my damn self. Boundaries with your damn self. Okay. I'll link that episode. So your kryptonite, like the thing that takes away your power, the thing that is your deepest, I don't know if I want to use the word vulnerability. I want to say your deepest wound is the thing that you need to look at and you need to work through, because when you don't do that, it shapes who you are. So if I am a person who has a core wound around feeling like I am not chosen, I may not put myself in situations where I can get job promotions. I may decide, nah, I don't want to take on that responsibility because I don't want anybody mad at me because no one chooses me anyway. So why would I stir the pot? Okay. Or it could put you in a situation where you don't do friends anymore because your best friend, which, like, let's be honest, how many of y'all got the same best friend since you were 3 or 5? Okay, well, I do. I do have a best friend since I've had since 5. I have 2 best friends, one from each college. I have a best friend. Like I do have multiple best friends. But the point is, like, my best friend that I had in elementary and high school, we still love each other. We still care about each other, but our lives grew apart. She could call me now. I could call her now. Doesn't mean our calls will be instantly returned, but that is something that happened. If I had and I actually low key do have the not feeling chosen core wound, and I've had to do a lot of the things that I've said, right? Like have expectations, enforce boundaries, and learn how to choose myself. How do you heal your kryptonite? You do the thing that you need done for yourself. And then miraculously, or if you believe in the universe or manifestation or attraction, you bring more of that in. So if you treat yourself well, you will be surrounded by people who treat themselves well and in turn treat you well. Well, how does that happen? Well, y'all, remember how your mama used to say, the way she or he carries themselves? When you carry yourself in a certain way, people won't try you. Why? Why come? I don't know. Maybe some of what I just said, manifestation, attraction, or maybe you don't allow those people access. So let's talk a little bit about and I'm only going to go on a couple because there's a lot of kryptonite out here, but just I want you really to think about that kryptonite is like not, I can't keep a job. It's like, go deeper. Well, why can't you keep the job? Well, why? You're like, you know, that exercise where you're like, you keep asking the why until you peel that onion, you get that blooming onion and you peel back them layers with that tasty sauce. Okay. All right. So to be chosen, the people want, I don't even know what I'm saying. My little notes right here. Let's see. Okay. If you want to be chosen, You don't care if the other person is available or not. You want what you want. That's what I was trying to say. You have a really hard time of letting go. You may get very deep grief around that. You can't tolerate rejection or redirection. Like you almost try, if you even try at all. So I think that there's always a spectrum of a core wound. So a wound around being chosen, either you want everyone to choose you and you try too hard and you can't tolerate when someone doesn't choose you, or the very opposite. You isolate yourself, you're reclusive. Once you try, that's it. Okay. So I want you to think about these as spectrums, right? So, and this comes from an abandonment wound from an early caregiver. You got to look at your loneliness and how you're partnering with yourself. Do you see your value? Probably not. What do you need to do to see your value? You need to be willing to get to know yourself. Now, this chosen wound, I think, goes perfect with a life coach or a therapist or some kind of program that allows you to see why you are worthy. To be chosen is a worthiness wound. And so many of us struggle with this wound. I see this a lot in women. I see this a lot in women. Okay. But also in men, also in our non-binary friends. Like, I think the idea that someone left us and that we were not enough to stay puts this wound on Front Street. To be chosen. Do you have a chosen wound? Is this your kryptonite? Is this your kryptonite? Have we all been abandoned? At some point in our lives, if we live long enough, people we love us are going to leave by choice or by circumstance, through passing away, through moving, all of that. But this abandonment wound, it basically regulates your behavior. Okay. And one of the things I think you have to do when you have an abandonment wound is you have to almost keep a running list of people who have not abandoned you. You almost have to be preemptive about ways you're not going to abandon yourself. You're going to have to let some motherfuckers go. Uh-oh. I finally said the MF word. You're going to have to let some motherfuckers go when it comes to an abandonment wound. You're going to have to decide the pain of being with someone who cannot see your worth. If you ask for it, I'll talk about that in a minute. The pain of someone who cannot see your worth is not enough for them to stay. You trying to convince people to stay. Okay. Let's talk about that whole piece around making someone see your worth. Okay. Making someone see your worth. That comes in reciprocal relationships. I'm not talking about a relationship where you do this and I do that, because that can be I haven't been chosen wound too. It has to always be equal. Know that people will show up for you, that people will love you in your mistakes, in your flaws, with your shadow self. Like, and that's the thing that's hard. We are in this world with people who do not wear their wounds on their, like, you don't have a little, hi, my name is abandonment wound. Hi, my name is chosen wound. Hi, my name is trust wound, neglect wound. They don't have that. You get into relationship with people and you begin to see that. Sometimes this comes out in, let me talk about the other spectrum, and then I'm going to talk about vulnerability. Sometimes this comes out in people not having tolerance to receive feedback. not having tolerance to have someone say, hey, this made me feel a certain kind of way. I'm going to be talking more about attachment wounding. I think that people who are avoidant, who feel like they could not trust their caregivers and they had to be the person who did all the heavy lifting, even as a child, and they had an anxiety around that. Those are the people who, if you say something to them, they go underground. Wait, I just what? It wasn't that big of a deal. You find yourself saying that and they are zoop gone. They the flash. Okay. But it also comes in the form of other people who are anxious. They're always trying to measure their words. They're walking on eggshells. They're always apologizing. So where does vulnerability come into this? And, I am a youngster on the vulnerability journey. Okay. I don't know why I just got a picture in my head of Oregon Trail. I had some dysentery around vulnerability. No, I went deep. I went hard in the paint on vulnerability in about 2017, 18, a book that would change your life around this. I mean, Brene Brown talks about this, but The Gift of Imperfections was a life-changing book. It was like a throw it across the floor, damn it, Brene book. That is vulnerability means that I've got to tell you what I'm feeling. And that is something that all people cannot tolerate, but that doesn't mean you don't do it. The people who stay, and I know these people in my life, I know the people who I can have which conversation with. The people who stay, who really understand and want to understand you, probably are able to be vulnerable as well. And it's okay if vulnerability it feels like another language, or it even feels like death when you're doing it, right? Because it is you bearing yourself to another human being. It, to me, and I will always remember Brene Brown saying this, I'm gonna paraphrase, you cannot experience the deepest joy if you are not allowing the deepest despair and your ability to share that with another person. Co-regulate. There's a safe person who I can be completely myself with. Self-regulate. I can go and have this experience with myself where I create safety. That is what is on the other side of I don't have the kryptonite anymore about being chosen. That's what's on the other side of that, okay? Some of these are kind of similar, but that's all right. That's all right. And this really comes up, this came in my head. This really comes up around relationships, y'all. This really comes up around compatibility and wanting who we want versus wanting who wants us, or allowing, especially if you're dealing with an avoidant partner, allowing someone to experience safety with us bit by bit. We do have we got to get there quick culture. But a relationship that's allowed to develop over, my mom used to always say, give them 4 seasons over time, and you're able to see, first we meet the representative with all of their splendor and glory, they're on their best behavior. It's kind of like when you go on a job interview and you're like, oh yeah, I do this, this, this. And then a year in a job, you got a shitty attitude. You get to experience all sides of a person. And I want to make sure on this journey we're taking with Don't Lie to Your Life Coach. Why did I almost forget the title of my podcast? I want to make sure that as we're healing, we're not excluding people, that we're understanding people, and we are being intentional about where they are placed in our lives, because not everyone is in the same place in their healing journey, and they're not supposed to be. Okay. I love how I interrupted myself to go back to It just came in my head. You all, I have a podcast about compatibility and attraction. I will link that one as well, okay? I do think there's a little nuance. Like I could have given y'all the wounds around neglect and abandonment and trust, and maybe I'll do a podcast with that one day, but I just want to be a little bit more laywoman's terms about that. But the next one is to be liked, accepted, and seen. I can spot this one 10,000 miles away. The being chosen wound is a different, I try a little too hard. The being liked kryptonite is more, well, let me just give you what I wrote down the notes. These are the people, remember we're on a spectrum. These people who need to be liked, accepted, and seen, they often overshare. They stay angry at people who reflect the wound back to them, either in their trying too hard or in them calling them out. This comes from an abandonment wound, and I believe a trust wound. We're going to talk about that. And what is core at this is learning to accept yourself as you are. Y'all, I just saw the Wham documentary. And I highly recommend you all watching that documentary if you love Wham like I did. I grew up, my sister loved Wham. I remember when they broke up, and I loved their songs and the pop and George Michael. I followed him. I was just jamming out to George Michael yesterday in the car. And I liked in the documentary that it stayed just in the Wham years. It didn't deal with a lot of George Michael's time after Wham at all. We didn't hear anything about his passing in the documentary. But if I had to say what one of the core wounds, and this came up a bunch when Andrew Ridgely, okay, y'all know what I'm talking about, the other member of Wham. When George Michael was talking, when Andrew was talking, it was this like not being accepted and liked. And that has the aspect of not being chosen, right? There's that abandonment, like someone left me early on, someone I cared about, left me. And George Michael talked about his dad not being able to, come out, not being able to, he was a gay man, not being able to do that, like making that decision. And so the thing about abandonment, it doesn't have to be, an abandonment wound doesn't have to be physical absence. It can also be emotional absence. And it can also be the fact that I have to play by a certain role to keep you there. But here's where I think there's a little bit of divergence with the to be chosen kryptonite and the to be liked, accepted, seen kryptonite, even though I used some of those words to describe in the first one. There's a trust wound. So the trust wound is, if I show you who I am, I do not trust that you will remain there. I do not trust you will accept me. I do not trust that I can be my complete self. So I bring this like phantom or false self. And because you like it, it makes me feel even less willing to be myself. So in the Wham documentary, when they separate, like you can see George Michael stepping into this. I trust my music abilities. I trust my songwriting abilities. I trust that I'm going to be, the solo artist. But when you understand some of the things, and let me just stop right here. What I loved about the documentary was the fact that no one is completely tragic and no one is completely happy. Like, we see so much joy with George Michael. We see his togetherness and his being accepted by the people who were there, right? But the trust wound is, am I allowed to remain that way? When you see a version of me, can I stay that way? And then the trust wound is also a betrayal, has a betrayal side to it too. Like, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. And you told me you would be this for me and you were not that. And you actually did the opposite. So it has that effect too. Okay. So, like, I want you to imagine, and we see this in the movies, and maybe you've been through this, I've been through this, where you're at school and someone acts like they're your friend and they care about you so much. And then they get around everyone else and they're like, I'd never be friends with you. And, you like they tell your business, or they like, and we've done this to people too, right? Like, they Jekyll and Hyde you, right? And you get this sense of betrayal. So let's talk about what you gotta do for this not to be your kryptonite. You don't want to lose all your power around this. You don't want to get Supermaned, okay? You're gonna have to find a way to grow that inner acceptance, bit by bit by bit. And I want to say this when it comes to healing. Again, we like everything to be fast. Like, it's Tuesday, so can I get completely healed by Thursday? No. To work through healing takes time, sometimes years, sometimes decades, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. So how do you accept yourself? Okay, let me help you. You're okay. You are worthy just as you are. We all make mistakes, that we all have things that we can change or enhance about ourselves. But like sexuality or preferences or I don't know, like who you really are, if you know that you're a person who does not want to have children and you partner with someone who that wants to have children, and you all do the healing work together, and you realize that your desire to have children is like, to not have children is really core to you, and their desire to have children is very core to them, then you've got to, you might be friends. Somebody might change, but when I say core to them and they've looked at that, or by the way, you don't have to look at it if you don't want to. You could just say, I know this about me. Then you can also decide that a situation isn't right for you either. You get to determine how you want it to be, So I also see this need to be liked in people acting terribly. And I'm talking about the person who has the kryptonite, when someone doesn't give them what they want. And when I say terrible, I mean terrible, okay? Like, they tear them down. They go around and tell people all kinds of things about them just because they felt that wound. And when we talk about core wounds, we're talking about a wound that was already there, that existed, and someone touches it. It's like if you have an exposed nerve and you have a toothache and someone touches it and you're like, ouch. Well, like, they didn't create that exposed nerve. That exposed nerve was there. That's kind of how that is. And I see this a lot with people who And these people, they will ask for forgiveness. They act terrible and ask for forgiveness, but they do the same exact thing over and over. When you ask for forgiveness, you're really making almost like a contract with the person that you are going to do things differently. And if the thing comes up again, that you're going to talk through it, but you're going to try to bring less intensity to that situation. So these are the people too who often have to be on some perfectionistic bullshit, and they create so much stress in their lives by needing to be perfect, and they're so exhausted. So when someone even might not even be not accepting them or not seeing them, not liking them, but they're a snapdragon, they're snapping because they're so exhausted for playing this role instead of letting themselves be. This is the good girl. This is the girl who's I've got to be, the woman who's got to be everything for her family, her, family she creates, and her family of origin she came from. And it gets to be too much. Okay. With this wound in particular, you got to learn how to relax, relate, release. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to accept you. Not everybody's going to see you. Not everybody's going to choose you. But what about the ones who are? Sometimes if you have this wound, you push past the people who see you and accept you, and you want the popular crowd, the cool kids, but you're sitting at the table with the Dungeons and Dragons kids or the theater kids, but you want to be in the in crowd. What about recognizing who sees you, accepts you, loves you, knows you, and wants to? That's cool too. Okay. Let's talk about things like another one. This Kryptonite is these people want to prove, they want it proven from outside sources that they are lovable. Okay. These are often the people, their kryptonite is that they want you to prove to them that they are worth love. Okay. And they are not willing to do the work themselves. It's more outer versus inner. So these are the people who smother, cover, and chunk the hell out of their people. And it's funny, my notes, I put the heel out of their people, but I meant to say hell, okay? These people are often bottomless pits. They sometimes lead double lives. They look one way to the outside world, but their true selves are very different. They often have a lot of guilt and a lot of shame because often these people have created a life of what they thought they were supposed to be versus what they really want to be. And again, this often has attachment wounding, avoidant, anxious, fearful avoidant. Okay, I can go into all of that. I will link to an episode where I talk about attachment. And this one is an abandonment wound. I'm telling you, abandonment wound is like the universal wound, y'all. Okay. So if you just have any questions, this shit keeps saying abandonment wound. Yep. Somebody left you and it surprised you. They left you physically, or they were there and they did not see you. Can also squeeze into a neglect wound, but I would rather keep it at the guilt wound. Okay. So these are the people who need their outer world to look a certain way. They need you to prove they're lovable, but they have the guilt wound because and remember, shame is I am wrong. Guilt is I have done something wrong, right? So the guilt wound comes in the fact that it is wrong for me to be myself. It is wrong for me to It is wrong for me when I did this action and I have to go all the way in the other direction. And it's wrong for me to question what my life has been. And it's wrong for me. So instead of me doing that, I'm going to give this version of myself for everybody else. And then I'm going to go out and do things where I'm allowed to be who I truly think I am, right? Like I may have the 2.5 kids, the picket fence, the white picket fence, the lovely spouse, but then I am outside doing other things extramaritally or, or like I cannot reconcile the two versions of my life. The version of my life that is what everybody sees, and the version of my life that I create to cope with what everybody sees. Do these people see their value? Probably not. Probably not. These folks now, and this is a little bit of difference of all of what I've said prior. These folks have got to work on identity. Okay. Like in the other wound, to be liked, accepted, and seen, these people often know who they are and want you to validate that. But with this wound, to prove they are lovable, a lot of these people have no idea who they are, because to find out who they are is too scary. Damn, I'm gonna give y'all a bunch of podcast episodes. I'm gonna put my podcast episode Survival A or B in. You're gonna have a lot of resources, y'all. These are the people who are scared as shit to find out who they are. This is not the person who knows they're gay. This is the person who doesn't know they're gay and unconsciously may hate gay people or may think being gay is the worst thing in the world. I'm not saying all these people are gay. I'm just using an example, y'all, because that's not true. But like, to look at this wounding, you'd have to look at what you don't like and figure out if you don't like it because you actually are it and you're trying to push it away. Oh, this is getting spicy. This is getting soap opera spicy, okay? Like, these are the people who Julia Roberts in Runaway Bride she liked all the eggs that her fiance liked. If they liked their eggs scrambled with cheese, she liked them scrambled with cheese. If they liked their eggs over easy, she liked it over easy. But there's this scene in the movie where she has all these eggs in front of her and she tries each egg to decide what she likes. These are the people, in my opinion, who are the codependents, who have been able to be chameleons. So like whatever this person likes, I like. And so then when that person leaves, it's so painful because the person feels like part of their identity is gone with them. These are the people who I want y'all to run to a life coach or a therapist, because you probably need someone to proxy, someone to help and pick out and say, oh, you said this. Do you really like this? Is this who you are? And this could take some time. Y'all, all these things take time. Kryptonite ain't even easy to figure out what the actual wound is from the symptom. These are the people who spend a lot of money that they may not have to keep up with the Joneses. These are the people who they want you to see how right they are. They want to signal their rightness in the car they drive and all these things. These are the people who, and I love these kind of stories too. They worked in corporate and then they have a midlife awakening, not crisis, a midlife reawakening, and they end up becoming a teacher. Or they end up becoming I don't know, a plumber, because that's what they always wanted to be. But there were all these expectations they think from their early caregivers. Some of them are real and some of them are imagined, okay? They want the world to reflect back to them. You all notice a lot of this is, I want the world to reflect back to me that I'm okay and that I'm good. So what I always say, the solution is in the problem. So then if that's the case, then they need to consciously reflect back to themselves that they are good. This one, the book I would read would be The Mountain Is You. I probably said that wrong. I always say that book wrong, but I'll put the book in there. It's either You Are the Mountain or The Mountain Is You, okay? Because this requires you to get to know yourself, okay? I got one more. And then I got a couple of solutions for you. Okay, core wound. They want to rewrite the past. Does Kim Arrington have this? Yes, she does. Something terrible happened. Something terrible happened that they cannot get over, and they want to rewrite the past. They want that thing to have never happened. They go back to the past and look at things and say, if only this had happened. This is a damn sure shame. Okay. This is abandonment often, because a terrible thing that happened often, someone left, someone died. And these people are often left with always pointing to what needs to change, what is wrong. I have this reference in my notes, and you guys, you're not going to really, a lot of y'all aren't going to know this, but there is something called the drama triangle. And the drama triangle has a counterpart called the empowerment triangle. So you match up the drama triangle with the empowerment triangle so you learn how to heal. I'm not going to go deep into this, but these people are often the persecutors in the drama triangle. They don't want to be the person who always calls out what's wrong, but they have to. And they need boundaries. Boundaries are how you govern yourself. These are the people who need to understand the past has happened, and for them to create the present and the future they want, they have to know that they didn't, even if it feels like they missed out, there's more life to be had. They need to know that they are allowed to make mistakes and get over those mistakes. They need to know that boundaries are the way that they govern themselves. They need to ask for things directly. They need to sit on their hands. I'll put those podcast episodes. Already Boundaries with Your Damn Self will be there, but the Sit on Your Hands episode, okay? These people need to know that newness is not scary, that there are more opportunities to come, that they did not miss out on their one golden ticket. These are the people who need to understand they didn't mess up as much as they think. The past didn't mess them up as much as they think. They are always searching and looking for what can happen. Now, this is a neglect wound, and the neglect wound is, it can have two sides. It can have the side where your family, your early caregivers didn't provide you your basic needs, food, shelter, all of that. But most often, the neglect is emotional neglect. Like, I was provided with the shelter. I was provided with the clothes. I did not get provided with the solidity of constant love, attention, emotional molding, like in a way that is respectful of the difference of the person who's being molded, right? Or understanding, or like the people who didn't get enough feedback from and what's coming to mind is some of us grew up with like mothers who had hypercritical mothers or fathers. And when they had their own kids, their answer to that was to give no feedback because it was so painful to receive so much feedback. So then their child is floating in the abyss of, I don't know, is this right? Is this wrong? No one is talking to me. No one is helping me emotionally with this. But because their parent was so emotionally, like almost like a helicopter parent, that everything was dissected, that they go to the opposite and dissect nothing. That's an emotional neglect wound. Yes, neglect can go on the other end, like physical needs neglect. But for most of us, with an exception, that, I mean, obviously, y'all, the audience is wide. There are people who did not have enough, right? But their parents weren't literally trying to keep enough from them in an abusive way. There may not have been enough money. There may have been limited food. There may have been that. But I'm talking about, when I'm speaking of neglect in this particular instance, I'm talking about emotional neglect. And I have a client who is working through this now in her 70s, where she had everything that she needed, but emotionally, like people would come back and say things her mother said about her, great things, but her mother didn't say those great things to her. Because remember, emotions, like part of what a kid does when they're 1 and 2 and 3 is they're exploring the world, and they step forward and they look back at their caregiver to see if it's okay. If their caregiver is smiling or is warm, then they keep exploring the world. But in these situations, if you didn't get that, you may be living your life a lot more closed than you want to. And so for these people, they need to experience more. They need to allow more. They need to allow themselves to understand that everything isn't always as connected as they think. Okay. Do they see their value? Probably not. You guys seeing a trend? The people who want to rewrite their past feel certain general anxiety. I don't want to say general anxiety, sorry, anxiety around what life is day to day. And what do they do next? Okay. What, like all these wound styles, right? All the kryptonite, to be chosen, to be liked, accepted, seen, to prove they're lovable from the outside, to rewrite their past. All of this kind of core wound information needs the person to go within and to begin to identify what they really want now, and potentially to go back and listen to that inner child and listen to, y'all say it here, I said listen to the inner child and find out what they wanted then, and try to give themselves that in their adult bodies with their adultness. Okay. Figure out what you want the most, figure out what you want in general, and begin to give yourself that. But with a little caveat built in, if it's a lot of material things or like that, should probably be looked at. When I'm saying figure out what you want emotionally, or like if you wanted to always take a dance class, that you allow yourself to take an adult dance class, because you weren't allowed to dance in your house because it was very religious in your house and dance was frowned upon. Sorry to give the whole movie, a Footloose, okay? They need to realize, all these folks, all the kryptonite holders need to realize some of the unhealthy ways they're trying to get their needs met by themselves and by others, and begin to kind of inventory that and decide what they want to do now. Like what they did was what they did, but like, what do they want to do now? A lot of people who overeat are trying to find ways to comfort themselves in ways they weren't comforted in all these situations. And food is not there to comfort you. You comfort you. You match with other people, friends, coworkers, members of congregations or community groups who can help provide comfort. But ultimately, you don't get out this life without opportunities to provide safety and comfort to yourself, even if you need help with that, okay? And then asking yourself every now and then, is this version of you really who you are, or is it outdated? And how to find that version of you of who you really are. Like when I was overbuying things, I felt like I was treating myself, and I felt like I was taking care of myself. But in reality, some of how you are, the behaviors you're doing, the actual inverse, the opposite of that is taking care of yourself. So taking care of myself is actually not doing those things. Taking care of myself is learning to go back to remembering who I really am, and being more frugal and being discerning about what I spend money on, and being able to create safety, physical safety with savings and all those things, right? So you need to ask, is this version of you who you are? Like when I won't going outside, like that ain't me. I love going outside, not in the 9 million degrees heat, but like I like being in the woods. I like being outside. I like it's you going back and remembering who you were when you were 5, 6, 7, 8, the things you loved, and giving that to yourself. So you don't gotta be Superman with the kryptonite. When the kryptonite box, what's his name, Lex Luger brings out the kryptonite box, you're like, oh, I'm Gucci, I'm good. I'm like, oh, this is just a green rock. This is not gonna take me out, okay? So this is something, this week, y'all, I want you to see what upsets you, and then ask yourself, like, what's really under this? Like, what is there something, a pattern I can see from my younger days that this is bringing up? Is this something I want to, like, do I still need to be angry about this? Do I still need to be bothered about this? Do I still, like, you have the ability to step out of anything that does not feel like it is any longer you. But y'all, it's going to take some work. It definitely, it's going to take some work. Anything that matters takes some work, some consistency, some ability to be able to allow for yourself to change, or even remember who you were prior to the wound taking place. Okay. I don't know, y'all. This one got kind of deep in the sauce, right? It got kind of deep, but this is really good. So ask yourself this week, notice what is your kryptonite? What comes up for you? Man, I really noticed that, like, whenever something happens, I feel over responsible, or whenever something happens, when someone's mad at me, it really bothers me, and that's your kryptonite. And then you want to give yourself what it is that you want from other people. Okay. All right, y'all, have a good one. A million resources in this one. See y'all next week. Bye.
Are you feeling what you just heard? Good, good. Repeat after me. You don't have to figure it out on your own again anymore. I'm here to help. Head over to KimArrington.com and download my free video series dedicated to getting you feeling your best right now. Look around, there's some good stuff waiting on you. Got questions? Well, we're always talking on the socials, so find me on YouTube, Insta, and the book. Don't be shy, y'all. Go listen to another episode or join me here the same time next week. Finally, don't keep good shit to yourself. Share this with a homie that could use some help too. Remember, we're not lying to ourselves anymore. We're not lying to our doctors. And you damn sure don't lie to your life.